Hey everyone, welcome to episode 318, Wounded Parents. Welcome to the Harmony in the Home podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hutchison. I'm a counselor, a life coach, and most importantly, an imperfect mom doing this work right along with you. And my goal on our podcast is to go from chaos to calm, feel less frazzled, and have more fun within your four walls to have more harmony in your home. You're probably like, what in the world are you going to be talking about, Kelly? So last week we talked about Getting the Love That You Want by Harville Hendrix and his work in imago therapy, and it's so powerful. And today we're going to talk about being raised by wounded parents. But before we do, I want to talk to you about letter writing, which so many of you have been reaching out to me about. If you want to have a side gig of writing letters to companies for money, I can set you up with the training that I did that showed me how to do it, who to write to, what to say. There's a template approval team that will look at your writing to make sure that you're doing it right so you actually get credits for your letters. They will teach you how, because then the companies will put credits into your account and the training teaches you exactly how to turn those credits into money into your bank. And for 2025, I have deposited 5 figures worth of income because of this very, very, very much side gig that I find so therapeutic and so fun. And I love sharing it with all of you. And it's been just from letter writing. And you never have to share it with anybody. I never said I swear I was never going to tell anybody. I barely even told David what I was doing. He would tell me, he would walk by like, what are you writing to? I'm like, don't worry about it. He's like, you're writing letters to your boyfriend again? And then once we started getting deposits, or I started getting deposits, I'm like, did you see how much my boyfriend put in our bank account today? So it turned into like a joke. But you do not have to share it with anyone. That is a separate part if you want to. But most people just write, which is what I was supposed to do. But then I was like, how can I keep this to myself? So now I'm sharing it with you. So if you're interested, send me an email or click on the link in the email to get the training, which showed me everything from start to finish. And you can be writing on the same day, which is what I was. Or you could take a time. There's nobody looking over your shoulder, which is the best part. You can be writing the same day, or you could do the training in a week or two and then do it very slowly and piecemeal. No wrong answer as always. So today we're talking about wounded parents, and I heard this on Instagram, which I was like, oh, clip it, need to listen to it, need to share it. And this will be very freeing for you if you were raised by wounded parents or by a wounded parent.
When you can look at your parents, not as your parents, but as little wounded children who were 2 wounded children who grew up, met each other, thought that each other would heal each other's wounds, did not know that they couldn't, then projected each other's wounds onto each other and had children, then projected their wounds onto each other and onto their children, did the best they could with the blindness that they were in and the dysfunction they were in. If you can get to that point where they are not mum and dad anymore, but just 2 wounded children, you get to that compassion, that understanding, and that forgiveness. You get to that. Then you face yourself and do the work on your unmet needs instead of resenting them for then and demanding something from them now. You get to that point and you have severely elevated from the place and space you were before as a wounded child, still crying to what you call mummy and daddy. That's your greatest journey and the beginning of the spiritual journey.
Oh my, that is where freedom comes from. And I want to talk to you about one of the comments because this is very, very key. Not to this earth says, oh, I see. So no accountability for parents yet again. So he says that, and it's very true because a lot of times we're like, oh, just let the parents off the hook. Well, as far as I've been living on this earth, Be Not Deceived says it perfectly in response to that. He or she says, yeah, life isn't fair. You can't hold accountable a person who rejects accountability. They are too buried in their unconscious pain to realize and take accountability. Joy Juniper says, you can choose not to be around them. Not having a relationship with your child is accountability. However, you need to work on healing and forgiveness for you. NBC says, no such thing as no accountability. Call it karma, call it judgment. Each and everyone will be held accountable. No need for us to take that task upon ourselves. We have our hands full with the healing. And Gonzalez Moore says, you were triggered. He was speaking to you, not your parents. The reason for this podcast and the reason for what he's saying is to free the child that is living inside us all who had wounded parents and wanted them to be different than they were. And I Am Will says, it's not about your parents taking accountability. It's about you healing. And I really try to stress this over and over. It's not excusing your parents' behavior or making it okay or saying, oh yes, I should have been abused. And it's not my fault. It's not their fault. They were just wounded parents. Yes, it is their fault. But where I want to help you is to detach that behavior that they projected onto you and they passed on that wounded feelings onto you, to reject that and untether yourself that it had anything to do with your worthiness and your value. It came from their past and their past. But it had nothing to do with you and your worthiness or your value. Because a lot of times parents will abuse a child and then the child will say, well, I must not be lovable. There must be something wrong with me because this happened to me. This is the way they treated me. But hopefully in this podcast, you realize that it has nothing to do with you. Put someone that you love and care for dearly into that same environment that you put on a pedestal. Put them into that environment. They would treat that same person, or they would treat that person the same exact way, because it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the person that you plopped in there. It has everything to do with them projected onto that child. And the reason why this podcast is so powerful for so many of us is because it frees you to make it mean something about you and your value and your worthiness. So let me know how this landed with you. In the comments on this, oh, I forgot to tell you the source. Sorry about that. It comes from David A.N. Fisher. David A.Y.A.N.F.I.S.H.E.R. He says, unmet needs and your limiting beliefs all project onto your relationships. You can face these and heal these without releasing the two wounded children who birthed you and blindly raised you. Once you let them off and find true compassion for their blindness, you can turn to face your unmet needs, your limiting beliefs, and start to take full and utter responsibility for them, for the triggers that show them to you. That's what triggers are. In relationship, that is what being presented for you to face and feel and heal, not to point and blame and project. And Pure Bell USA says, amen. God opened my eyes to this as a teenager and it changed my heart. And Demolish International says, it has to be realized that there are no bad guys, just wounded children who grew up to be wounded adults working with whatever tools they were given. No blame necessary, just understanding and compassion. If you're aware, then it is your responsibility to do better, be better, show better. We're all here to learn. Allow yourself and others in grace. Anaya Crow says, that is very much how I see my mother. The issue is she still takes out her wounds and others, especially on me. I can wish her well from far, far away. Forgiveness and healing do not mean you have to invite someone back into your life. For anyone that needs to hear this, some people are not healthy to be around. So this is very key, to love them from afar. And if you have to cut them out completely, then you cut them out completely, or you see them once a year for chicken dinner at a mutual restaurant, or once a week, or once a month, or once every 6 months. And that's for you to decide how healthy or unhealthy you want them to be in your life. And there's no wrong answers. There's no pressure. King's Draka says they were wounded children. Now they are wounded adults. They are wounded and they are your parents. They are not just wounded children. There is room for holding them accountable and having forgiveness for them. You don't need to see them as these wounded, fragile beings in order to start listening to your intuition and body and begin providing for your own unmet needs yourself. You don't have to demand things of people, but you do have to have standards. And if your parents cannot meet those standards, you can forgive them, but not have them in your life. You are somehow more spiritually evolved for being all forgiving and keeping everyone in your life despite their constant violations of you. And Jail the Great says this: once you do and understand this, you are free. Give your parents the same grace you want your kids to give to you. Oh, do I want a whole boatload of grace for my kids? B Space Ceramic says, it doesn't help victims of abuse if they can't hold themselves to accountable and do the work they need to do on themselves, continue to perpetuate poor behavior and refuse to take responsibility, then there is no point in having a relationship anymore. I'm done. I'm healthier and happier without them in my life. I've healed and I've let them go. And that is a very, very powerful way to go. Do you see how she's healed and let them go at the same time? This comment got 1,268 likes. Rebecca Jack 16 says, that's exactly how I see her. In order not to hate her, hate takes too much effort. Yes. I can't stop reading the comments. Oh, this is pretty cool. I am stillicious. I know I'm butchering these names, but you get the point. I was so thankful to be able to fly over my parents' life during a sound bath in Costa Rica. I got to view them as children in the trouble that they went through with their parents that they don't even remember. And it completely explained to me everything I needed to know, and nothing has been the same since. It changed my relationship with them tenfold, but also, and more shockingly, their relationship with themselves and each other. And here's another comment, kind of like the first one I talked about. Amber Isha says, and this is very powerful. This is a good thing to think about. She says, I don't know. Where's the accountability? My generation, we go to therapy and we do the work and heal. This sounds like a repeated cycle. Then in response to that, your generation goes to a resource tool that you've now learned is a resource tool, one that is affordable, now accessible to all people to relate and talk to, has learned what mental health is and how it shows up, knows that sometimes going to church is enough, knows now that enough money to afford self-care is a tool, now has social media educating daily on these things and making it normalized lifestyle. Your generation has a advantage that your parents and grandparents did not have. That's why and how your generation is going and why they didn't. Someone had to break the generational curse, and it happens to be your generation. She wrote back, I hear you, but now they have the resources, so what's the excuse? I actually told my dad the other day, you should try therapy. He is my best friend, so he vents to me a lot, and said, no, what do I need that for? Your generation believes everything on social media. What do you think we did back in the day? So there is no lie to your truth, but at what point do they change? LOL. And that's the thing. We can't going to them expecting them to change, and we don't need them to change because we're changing ourselves in the way in which we view it. That it has nothing to do with us, and we detach and untether that. And that's where true freedom comes from, or we're not that little girl, that little boy living inside a grown-up body, where we are the grown-up living inside the grown-up body. And that is pure freedom. But it's not a perfect that you have it all the time. It's just that awareness is key, and that is your key to your awareness. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye. Hey mamas, thanks for listening. If you had any ahas, clicks, or those lightning bolt moments while listening, you have to check out my free parenting bootcamp, where we take all of this to the next level and we try to create even more awakenings for ourselves so that we can connect more with our kids and never yell at them again. You can sign up at www.coachingkelly.com. And if you really want to fill up my love cup, send me an email of what your aha was, what your click was, what was that lightning bolt moment while you were listening. I want nothing more in life than for you to have harmony in your home and to learn how to be an imperfect mom like me, which allows your kids to be imperfect too, each and every day. Thanks for listening.